I believe it's 5 o'clock. Scott, are we good? Excellent. Hi, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome you tonight to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271. Do we need to turn it up in the back? Scott? All right. I'll scoot it closer and we'll talk even more. How about that? Excellent. Good. Welcome. There's bad feedback though, Scott, so let's see. Scoot it back. How's that? Is that all right in the back there? Are we good? Okay, awesome. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and again, would like to welcome you all to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 Board meeting of November 1st, 2001. Would the gentlemen please remove their hats, and everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'd like to introduce our participants for this evening. Starting at my far right is Miss Lynn Town, Clerk of the Board, Dr. Sean Hawker, Superintendent, and to my immediate left, Mr. Casey Morrisroe, Board Member, Mrs. Lisa May, Board Member, and I'm Rebecca Smith, Acting Vice Chair. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of this meeting. Please sign in on the sheet provided at the entrance door. 45 minutes have been allocated tonight for public comment. Because of the diversity of issues, members of the board may or may not respond to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Issues may also be recorded and referred to the proper staff person for follow-up. Comments may also be submitted to the board by email at trustees@cdaschools.org or in writing through the clerk. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda before the Navy Blues? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
This evening, I'm now pleased to share a video performance of the national anthem by Lake City's own Navy Blues under the direction of Brittany Fundheller. The full choir was unable to attend in person this evening, but we thank them for taking the time to provide this recording. Would the audience please stand? Beautiful. All right, next up on our agenda, we have board comments, and I invite Mr. Morrisroe.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Can you hear me okay? So just briefly, I want to talk about policy 2340. It's a current policy in the district titled Controversial Issues and Academic Freedom. I just wanted to give the board a heads up that I'll be bringing that policy to us either in December or January. The Idaho School Board Association has been working on that policy change some language to encompass some legislation that was passed this last year in regards to House Bill 367, and I should know what but it's around critical race theory. So I've worked with ISBA on that policy, made some they recommended, and I'll be bringing that to the board either in December or January for information to encompass some of that rules into our. Also, if you would allow me, Miss, I would just like to talk about social emotional learning briefly, based on a conversation I had over the weekend or in the past week with a new, or with a constituent who is fairly new to our community. And they were unfamiliar with the happenings of 3.5 years ago, March 20th. Principal at Corling High School, Troy Schuler, took his own life. In the span of several weeks, we had a few students and many other communities new to Coeur d'Alene or new to our community, and you may not know this, and you may not know that Idaho is one of the leading states in suicide in the country. Union County is certainly no exception. So, to me, the social emotional learning framework came out of that work. And it's important, I think we found that the community was desperate to do more for our students, to support our students, to support. I'll tell you where I was when I got that phone call, who I was sitting with when I got that phone call. It's important work, and I don't really care what we call it. Important work that must be done to do more to support our students. Framework to me is important, that we're doing something unified as a district, not something different in each building, which tends to be the case. So, I want to talk about that. I know there's been a lot of conversation on it for the last 6 or 7 months. An important issue for me, and regardless of what happens tomorrow, I'm fighting like.
Thank you, Mr. Morrisroe. It's that time. And onward. Move on to our public comment. Do I have a list here? I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It is a meeting of the board to conduct district business. For tonight's meeting, the board will allow up to 45 minutes public comment. Those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to 1 comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. You'll be called to the microphone. Please state your name and your city of residence. Additional comments may be provided in writing to the clerk. Will ensure that board members receive any additional commentary. If I determine that an individual's statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, I may terminate that to address the board. I will start a timer every time each public each person comes up to speak. And so, and I will remind you at 15 seconds or so that you have about kind of wrap it up. We will keep everything to 3 minutes. So if you see me looking at my phone, I'm simply. So I'd like to invite Lily Sharon to the microphone, please.
Hi, I'm Lily Sharon, and I live in Hayden, Idaho, and I'm 13. So for me, middle school has been really hard, but mostly super crazy. I want to speak about what goes on in schools, and not just what parents or even just adults think about what's going on in the schools. In middle school, there's way more bigger problems than the teachers are making. If the teachers are making the kids feel bad about themselves talking about wars and slavery, which, by the way, I have never felt like a victim when they are talking about slavery, World War II, or anything. Learning about that stuff is really important so we don't repeat history for our generation. It shows us what we can't allow to happen again. Kids in my school talk about mental health a lot, and sometimes the only people they can go to is their teachers because their parents would not care. But if we stop allowing the teachers to even care about their students, then that will put a huge toll on the kids' mental health. So if anything, we need to get more mental health support throughout all the schools. So you guys, as adults in our community, need to stop acting like you guys know everything and start listening to students, and mostly teachers, and stop thinking it is all about your future. It is about my future and other students' futures. If you as parents are just you as parents and just people in our town are tearing up the schools and the kids in our community. We need more mental health support, and we need to learn about what happened in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Heidi Smith?
I have lived, grown up in Coeur d'Alene all of my life, having 3 older siblings graduate from Lake City and my father work at CHS for 5 years. I would like to address the changing of the schedules for next school year, and I am here to advocate for the block schedule. Now, I do agree having 2 schools with vastly different graduation requirements is an issue, and having the goal of both operating on the same bell schedule is good. I also know you hear from a lot of people, but I'd like you to see this from a student's perspective. I am currently an active member of the band program here at Lake City High School, being in Lake City Symphonic Band, Stomp, Jazz 2, Marching, and Pep Band, as well as being a part of our debate program and dual enrolled at North Idaho College. All of this is truly only doable because of the block schedule. I am able to be in multiple bands, take 3 college classes and an AP class, with still not feeling overwhelmed each day. From my academic experience at Lake City on the block schedule, and having gone to the Coeur d'Alene Charter Academy and experienced a 6-period day, I personally feel the block schedule has so many more benefits, and I'd like you to consider them when deciding the schedule for next year. First off, the block schedule has many benefits for our band program, such as letting people double up in classes and allowing us to have extra bands, such as Stomp. Now, this is shown even more through the fact that CHS's band program heavily struggles when it comes to keeping juniors and seniors. This is due to the fact that many juniors and seniors at CHS have to drop band to take required classes or their chosen language. This and band members not being able to double up in classes makes all of the odds stacked against their program. Being on block schedule, it allows for so many more band opportunities for students and the program as a whole. Let alone band and other electives, block schedule allows for more academic opportunities. Personally, with my schedule, I am able to take 3 college classes and AP Calculus while still having time to be prepared for my classes and not feeling constantly overwhelmed. I also have multiple friends who take anywhere from 6 to 8 AP classes and are mostly only able to do this due to the block schedule. It allows for more time each day to go get through harder lessons and be able to ask questions as well as comprehend the material, on top of having an extra day in between classes to fully understand the material and have enough time to do homework. Speaking of this extra day in between classes, this is more accommodating for students who are in sports or other extracurricular activities, or students who have a job, allowing them more time to be in control of their own schedule and not have to worry about homework every single day from every single class. This extra day, and only having 4 classes each day, also is more accommodating for students who struggle with school. It allows for less stress every day and not having every class, and less of a dread for students who struggle wanting to go to school. It also allows for more chosen classes, making it easier to get through your day. Let alone this, the block schedule is more similar to a college experience. With the goal of preparing students for their next steps in life, a block schedule allows for this. In college, or even an everyday work environment, you won't have 50-minute periods of time, one after another, every single day. College classes are longer and usually not every day as well.
15 seconds.
In a work environment, you'd be able to do longer tasks and have more time with just one night to do them. With all this being said, I hope you take in consideration all the block schedule has to offer, with giving programs such as band more opportunities, giving students more academic and elective opportunities with less stress, being more accommodating to students who struggle with school and those who are part of sports or other activities, as well as being most like students' next step in life, whether that be college or the workforce. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Heidi. Jessica Maharan.
I am speaking on behalf of North Idaho Pride Alliance today. Our message today is not only directed to the current Board of Trustees, but also to the future board and the public at large. North Idaho Pride Alliance strongly condemns anti-LGBTQ political messaging surrounding the November 2nd local election for school board trustees. There is a human cost to the safety and well-being of those who are being targeted, along with the Coeur d'Alene community at large, with this ugly messaging rooted in fear, ignorance, and disinformation. This dangerous rhetoric reflects a failure to understand that public schools are obligated to uphold the U.S. Constitution and federal laws that prohibit discrimination, bullying, and harassment against students because they are transgender. This includes, but is not limited to, Title IX federal law that bans sex discrimination in our schools. Courts have made it clear that this includes discrimination against someone because they are transgender or don't meet gender stereotypes or expectations. The Equal Access Act requires all student organizations, such as GSA or human rights clubs, to be treated equally. This means that schools cannot ban certain types of groups or single them out for worse treatment. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects students' freedom of speech and freedom of expression. That includes the right to dress according to gender identity, talk about being transgender openly, and express gender in other ways. We trust that the current Board of Trustees and the Coeur d'Alene Public Schools Administration is firmly committed to serving all students and upholding federal and state laws. We support our CDA schools on internally handling incidents and respecting the privacy of students and families as they must by law. For any school board candidate or activist group that believes their views and desired actions are above the law, our message to you is this. If you are successful in securing a place on this board and dare to take any action that violates the rights of transgender or gender nonconforming students, their families, or any education professional, you will be met with fierce resistance every step of the way. There are many people in this community who value kindness, inclusion, our schools, and our youth, and we will not stand for it. We have zero tolerance for discrimination and unlawfulness. Anyone serving on a nonpartisan school board who works against policies that keeps our schools safe for all students will open the door for
15
legal
seconds.
recourse. Thank you.
Mike Birdsong.
I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to come up here and speak. It probably won't even take me 3 minutes. I'm the president of Panhandle Patriots RC. We've been involved in this community for quite a while, protecting anywhere from kids in the street or who are whatever. We believe in equal rights for all people. We could care less about your race, your color, your gender, but what we do care is about children. If anybody wants to push an agenda or come in and push their beliefs on impressionable children, now we have an issue with that. Like I said, we stand up for all peoples. We have protected BLM, and actually there was no need to even protect them, to utilize their rights to come here and protest. We're all for that. We'll be the first ones that will stand up to protect gays, blacks, or whoever. But things like critical race theory, that is straight up racism. I'm a huge Martin Luther King guy. No child should ever be ashamed of the pigmentation of their skin and or their gender or what they choose to be. You know, as far as bathrooms in a school, this could be really simple. Put a gender neutral bathroom. Then those that are opposed to it, that other children would be uncomfortable that a transgender male would come in, problem solved. But with that being said, you folks, what you need to understand is, you know, people like me, I'm a vet. Now, I took an oath when I went in the Marine Corps, and that did not have an expiration date, but we are firm believers of standing up and protecting our children. We will do that, and as far as we are law-abiding people, cross the final line of departure, and things will be the way we are. It will be. We wish no harm on anybody, but if you come after our children, we're going to have a serious problem. If you want to battle, let it start here, right here with me. I do not care. I wish no harm on nobody. Mess with kids, and there's going to be repercussions. Thank you. I'm done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Birdsong. Ann Seddon.
Ann Seddon, Coeur d'Alene. Over the course of 4 years, 289 teachers were sent to Denver for training with PEBC. That stands for the Public Education and Business Coalition. Taxpayers footed the bill for transportation, accommodation, and meals. Only COVID and a $6.1 million deficit halted this. I assume this was all done with the knowledge of the board. For the sake of time, I will only quote 2 sentences from the PEBC mission. Under why, in a packet I will be giving you, quote, cultivating human dignity and those of racial, cultural, social, and economic privilege have an undisputed responsibility, and here's what I have a problem with, to transform and share power. Under how? Disrupt white supremacy, cultural norms, individually and institutionally. It seems that every time I look beneath the surface of a seemingly innocent program, I find critical race theory. Sadly, I have found it to be true in the equity framework, portrait of the graduate, teacher training at PEBC, and most unfortunately, in the otherwise positive grade school program second step. Are these the things parents and patrons wanted when they passed levies? I know many people who chose not to vote for the levy due to the lack of transparency. I am an advocate of public schools, and as a former school board member, helped convince citizens to pass a very needed building bond after mistrust from formerly misspent bond money. If we want future levies to pass, the administration and board must change course, stop indoctrination, and get back to teaching. Our kids deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ann. Rebecca McCullough.
My name is Rebecca McCullough, and I wasn't given the opportunity to speak at the last school board meeting. Not sure why exactly, but I would like to read as quickly as I can an article from Eco-Textile News, and I would like everybody on the board to remember that this is founded in science. It's not fake science, it's real science. Top German scientists have found that wearing certain types of masks for long periods of time could result in potentially hazardous chemicals and harmful microplastics being inhaled deeply into human lungs. Professor Michael Braungart, director of the Hamburg Environmental Institute and co-founder of the world-renowned Cradle to Cradle environmental standard, has told Eco-Textile News that mask wearers unwittingly run the risk of breathing in carcinogens, allergens, and tiny synthetic microfibers by wearing both textile and non-woven surgical masks for long periods of time. His recent findings have been backed up by another leading industry textile chemist, Dr. Dieter Sedlak, managing director and co-founder of Modern Testing Services, Augsburg, Germany, in partnership with Modern Testing Services Global Hong Kong, who found elevated concentrations of hazardous fluorocarbons, formaldehyde, and other potentially carcinogenic substances on surgical face masks. I can only say 100% that I have similar concerns to Professor Braungart, is what he said. During the ongoing pandemic, most people are now also wearing masks and face coverings made from traditional textiles materials that would normally be used to make our clothing. Thankfully, the risks associated with harmful chemicals on clothing are lower than ever, but the risks aren't zero. The risks associated with clothing tend to be due to skin contact, apart from babies that tend to suck anything they can get near their mouth, and therefore it is normal to have tougher, more stringent chemical standards for baby wear textiles, according to textile chemical expert Phil Patterson of Color Connections, who also works with the highly respected ZDHC Foundation on Chemical Management. In my opinion, textile masks do not begin to pass the most basic hazard test for kids, for whom the risks of COVID have been categorically demonstrated to be minuscule, he said. One unforeseen problem for those mandating the continued and long-term wearing of face masks, such as governments and businesses, is the potential for future litigation if they are proven to have any long-term adverse impacts on human health, especially since long-term studies have yet to be taken. Now, I'm not going to read the entire article, but you can find it on Eco Textiles, and it clearly states that it doesn't matter if it's a surgical face mask, a fabric face mask you can pick up at Walmart and make yourself. There are toxins that you will be inhaling and carcinogens, formaldehyde. Who wants that in their kid's body? So we need to be careful with protecting our children. Do not mandate them to be wearing masks at school. And just so the audience is aware, and anybody listening to this video, that the school currently gets its money from attendance. So if they enforce another mask mandate, withdraw your child physically, but do not disenroll them from the school. They will lose their funding. And as far as transgender issues in the school, I don't want my kids to learn about transgenderism. I think it is perverted, and I know a lot of people believe the same.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Matt Edwards?
Hi, thank you for allowing us to speak. This is very difficult for me to bring up because it's such an emotional issue. But last week, when I heard the news in Loudoun County, Virginia, that a school board and its administration had learned of a male student who raped a girl in a bathroom because he was allowed to go into a girl's bathroom because he wore a dress and called himself a girl, and they ignored it. Well, I don't know if they ignored it, but they swept it under the rug and transferred him to a new school. And then he did it again. And now there's 2 girls whose lives are destroyed. All because we're allowing boys, teenage boys, in school to go inside a girl's locker room and a girl's bathroom because they want to wear a dress and call themselves a girl. I'm an expert on teenage boys because I used to be one. And I went to high school. And if any adult or group of adults said to me that I was allowed to go into the girls' restroom as long as I called myself a girl and wore a dress, I would have been floored. Well, I'm older now. I have a daughter, and I'm floored for different reasons. I'm in possession of a memo that was sent out by Libby Barrett that was obtained through a records request. She's a superintendent, or an assistant superintendent, I believe, where she's instructing that due to current administrative policies at the federal level that go back and forth, or whether or not we should allow boys who wear dresses to go into girls' locker rooms and girls' restrooms, that is now okay to happen in this district. Well, I'm sorry, but this is my community, this is our community, this is your community. This is unacceptable to allow boys to go into a girl's locker room or to a girl's restroom simply because they're calling themselves a girl and want to wear a dress. We as a community have to do better. We have to protect our girls.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mike Mongden?
Live in Hayden, Idaho. kind of blew this whole thing up because Matt Edwards said just what I was about to say, and that nice red sweater back said what I was going to quote from the PEBC. Kind of got nothing, although I'd like to add to what she talked about with the PEBC. Later on in their mission statement, it also states it was adapted from the National Equity Project. So I looked that up. I didn't have to dig far to see the statement. To create systems of equity, we must acknowledge and make meaning of the historical and ongoing impact of racism and white supremacy. And it's worth noting, if you go through their pages, they have protesters, and they have photographs of protesters, and they're all holding Black Lives Matter signs. So this project, this National Equity Project, is how the PEBC, or at least where they're grabbing their framework from, and that's where we're sending our teachers for ongoing training. I'd like to see a board that will recognize these things. I would like to see a board that will stand up and say, you know what, this program's not for us because of how they start their program. This is the basis for their program. It's on the first page on their website. It's right there. Hard to miss. I'd like to see a board that'll stand up and say, listen, we need to find another program. We need to find one that might be based in family values, as opposed to that. Might be based in promoting positive attitude towards the United States, as opposed to what critical race theory does promote. Critical race theory is illegal in the state of Idaho. That's fantastic, but the problem is a lot of the curriculum, a lot of the programs that are available to us, it is being weaved into those programs. And so we have to stand up, recognize that, and stand up and fight against it. I want a board that does that. I don't have anything against anybody up there personally. I absolutely love going to barbecue with you. I don't know you, but you know, it's all about the kids here, and I want to see candidates elected to the board who will stand up for the kids and fight against this kind of crap. In terms of, I did have an issue, I gotta say, how we make
15
decisions.
seconds.
I don't have that issue now then. Okay, good enough. So I'd like to reiterate what Matt Edwards said in terms of keeping the transgender students away from my daughter. I'm not saying that they're all evil, I'm not saying they're all bad, but there is the potential for things to happen like what happened in Virginia, and I don't want to see that in my school.
Yeah.
Hey, just as everyone's talking, I'm trying to take notes. I think it was Heidi. She talked faster than my old brain will process. And she was great. You could tell she had it down. She got it within 3 minutes. Please, if you have comments, email them. Allows me, and I think all of us, a moment to digest them, to read about them, to reflect on them. Much more than I can do here. Just trustees@cdaschools.org. You can email us your comments or your articles. It would be appreciated.
Thanks. Dakota Andrews.
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to firstly thank everyone for coming tonight. I work at a grocery store, and I actually recognize a lot of the people in here, and I just want to say it's really important that we involve ourselves in these issues and fight for what we believe in. But I also grew up here, too, so I think I deserve a chance to say something that just lets people know that I'm a trans person, and living here my whole life, all I've ever wanted to do was do good. And all the other trans people that I've met in my life so far only have the same goal, They just want to have fun, you know, have a beer like the rest of us. They just want to live their lives normally and peacefully. The LGBTQ community is not directly tied to violence. If violence is tied to anything, it's to mental health and the lack of mental health being a priority in schools. And I know it is very difficult to get mental health care in this state because I'm currently on a 4-month waiting period for psychological evaluation for autism, ADHD, as well as bipolar, which that's from my father. Anyways, I would just like to mention something that I wrote down on my phone. Just me repeating myself, so I apologize. But we're not here to hurt you. We're just here to have fun and make for a better community. We just want to garden and have a barbecue and chill. And as far as like the whole thing about not teaching people that like black people were enslaved for 400 years, and we just like let that happen over and over, and the fact that there are people who think that it's okay not to teach that, and therefore your children have no sympathy for these people. There is a struggle going on wherever you go, and a lot of those people, they happen to have pigment in their skin, and I think that needs to be addressed, and I don't think it should be shoved away. I would also like to address the comment that said that that being transgender is perverted, and I would just like to rebuttal that because
In Dakota, you have 15 seconds.
for thousands of years, transgender people walked among the Indian populace before the British colonized it, so we've been here a long time. And also Two-Spirit, also known as trans people, existed within the Native American communities for thousands of years as well, peacefully. Thank you.
Wrap it up. Thank you, Dakota. Thank you, Dakota. Echo Linsky. Apologies if I didn't say your last name.
All right, I'm going to go kind of fast because I have a lot to say. I'm not here today to give mask stats or talk about how insanely unefficacious the vaccine being pushed on our globe is. Check your inboxes for that data. Because for some reason, speaking on those things have been deemed politics, those speaking domestic terrorists, and the humans behind the choices and coercions being made are completely disregarded. Reminder, there is literally zero consensus on the mandates going around. Tonight, as an Oregonian refugee, I'm here to give warning to everyone in this room. A warning I hope you all heed. I have traveled all over the country and left it 3 times during the last 18 months, and Coeur d'Alene and North Idaho as a whole is still a sweet spot, one fairly untouched by the tragic ugliness and greed bleeding out all over our country. Despite differences, people here still say good morning, talk to their neighbors, look each other in the eye. Back home, the home that I fled, this is not the case. There is no mutual respect. Mandates have created monsters screaming at each other in the grocery store. Fear-filled humans ignore science and logic and avoid each other outside, yelling, "Don't breathe on me, you murderer." Is that for me?
No.
Okay, sorry. Social justice warriors have ruined storefronts, vandalized public buildings, set the ground on fire. The division is so thick and so real you cannot even leave your house without physically tasting it in the air. It has become a, you don't think like me, believe like me, look like me, vote like me, so now you don't deserve to breathe the same air as me environment. To say it's tragic to witness is an understatement. I left because my home was no longer safe and human lives were no longer valued above one's politics. I'm here because I care. I truly care about every life lost and every life left to live. But fear and force isn't living. Pushing your will upon another isn't living. Putting politics above individual people and their stories is not living. Teaching our children they are responsible for the actions of their forefathers while failing to model a life of love and listening, communication and compassion is not living. If you guys want to preserve Coeur d'Alene, you want to protect these children, start by protecting their minds. Show them not to hate themselves or another who lives differently, but how to have empathy and heart. Model it. Give them critical thinking tools, not mandates and theories based on sides, corruption, propaganda, and a foundation of tragic hate, and then remind them that they live in a beautiful, free nation and that they have a choice. Don't become Portland. There is a dark, oppressive cloud hanging over Oregon. I promise you don't want hanging over here. For once you welcome it, it changes the fabric of the culture, the people, the kids, and it's nearly impossible to undo. Our kids are screaming for help, covering their faces or masking them, or putting
about.
Okay.
I need you to wrap it up. Thank you.
Yep. Last thing, the decisions made here matter, and the kids you serve are not pawns or for political careers or ideals. The adults in here, in their world, need to step up, teach with love, not force, and put empathy and respect for fear above their politics. Adults in this room, the change starts with us. Our kids are watching.
Thank you, Echo. Carrie, the minute.
Thank you. My name is Carrie Simone. I'm from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I understand there has recently been some concern expressed by members of our public as to the inclusion of LGBTQIA people in our school system. Make no mistake, if you are debating whether a child can use the bathroom they so choose and identify with, you are debating the very inclusion of these children in our school systems. I could list fact after fact, statistic after statistic regarding the suicide rate of LGBTQIA plus children and teenagers. These suicide rates have been found to be in direct correlation with the perceived support the child feels they have from their peers, their family, their schools, and their community. However, since a quick Google search will show the evidence of the importance of supporting these kids, I'm assuming it is willful ignorance that propels these anti-LGBTQIA arguments forward. When it becomes personal, however, things change. As a parent of a gay son, these numbers scared me when he came out to me in middle school. But thank goodness I listened to him, accepted him, loved him, and celebrated him. Thank goodness he found support in his school, both at Woodland Middle School and Lake City High School, where he's now the secretary of the GSA. And thank goodness he found support in the HREI and NIPA mentors and youth. As a mother needing to know how to best support her son as he navigated not just the minefield that is growing up and learning who he is, but also learning that he is part of a unique group of people who will always have to be on guard against people who hate him simply for existing, and maybe even say call him a pervert. Thank goodness I had the support of HREI, NIPA, and all the books, materials, and support groups available through the schools. Thank goodness he had access to materials that would allow him to discover how wonderful he was. Please keep in mind as you navigate these waters, the law requires you to respect the rights of these students. Title IX, the Equal Access Act, FERPA, and the First Amendment all cover the rights of LGBTQIA plus students. We don't want to take anything away from anybody else, but just want to ensure that these students feel safe and that they are in a community where they are welcomed and in a place that is conducive to learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Dan Bell.
Can I pull this up a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dan Bell. I am a resident here in Coeur d'Alene. Just want to list a few facts. First off, I'd like to point out that Mrs. Smith and Mrs. May are not wearing their masks, even though they have voted 5 times at least to mask our children.
Mr. Bell, please don't point out any. Yeah, I'm not wearing my mask. So.
Right, okay. So, again, that they have voted 5 times to mask our children. So a few things. Libby Barrett interpreted law. She's not a lawyer. She's telling principals that the law is cut and dry about transgender bathrooms, and that she is quoting the Idaho School Boards Association, who are a political organization. ISBA also says our school officials are under immediate threats of violence, and with Biden, FBI called our parents terrorists. And I don't think any of you have experienced a single violent physical reaction from any parent. Also to the folks, someone mentioned something about slavery and skin color, and specifically mentioned dark-skinned or black folks. I want to be very clear that there is history of all skin colors being slaves in this country. Many Jews in World War II were forced into slavery, and the Nuremberg Code was the result of that, which says we have medical autonomy. The LGBT folks here who have said they're getting hate comments have failed. I just want to point out they failed to provide a single example of an instance where a trans or LGBT student was discriminated against. So I don't know where the hate is coming from. Also, I want to say that the Miss Smith and Miss May, you guys have associated yourself with Miss Swingrover and sent out a bunch of literature to the community about the upcoming election. I want to point out some of Miss Swingrover's tweets. Number one, she in her profile lists her pronouns. She said this thread is fire about someone who is making a racist comment about white evangelicals who don't like critical race theory. So by association, supporting critical race theory. She says she wishes that Idaho was a blue state. And I know that this new thing that Libby sent around is talking about teachers being able to teach politics in the classroom, which is, we see very clearly where her politics lie, and birds of a feather, the three of you running together, probably have the same politics. She says that she is for mask mandates. She is pro-mask mandates, which you folks have shown that you're pro-mask mandate as well. She has called Idaho a God-forsaken state. She has said that her son is extremely shot averse, but has decided to make that choice for him anyway. All we're asking here is for fairness and for parents to be able to make their own decisions about their children, and it's very clear from the three of you, from your two actions on the school board and from Ms. Swingrover's comments and you guys associating yourselves,
wrap it up,
that
Mr. Bell.
you guys
Thank you.
are all in the same boat, and so therefore vote Anderton, Bierke, and Campbell for tomorrow.
All right, your time's up. Brennan Mandel. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Good evening, trustees and administration. My name is Brennan Mandel. I'm a district parent and I've lived here nearly 10 years. I don't plan on taking the full 3 minutes, but I just wanted to take this opportunity for one comment in two parts. First, I would just like to tell all of you and your staff that although I don't always like or agree with the conclusions that you come to or the policies that go out, I very much appreciate the processes and opportunities for me to weigh in, either through community forums, review through emails that go out, meetings. There are channels and you've made those available. So yes, I have a right as a parent, but I also have a responsibility, and that is to participate with civility and to be constructive. So allegations of lack of transparency, secret meetings, deciding on curriculum that we haven't weighed in on are not fair. Many of us in this district are appreciative of the opportunities you provide for us to participate, and even if we don't always agree on the outcome. So thank you. My second comment is to thank the teachers in this district. I want to thank you for all your hard work. The past 2 years has been challenging in so many ways, and you continue to show up to teach, nurture, and support all of our kids. I'm sorry that you're being attacked about the integrity of your work and the service to our community. Many of us know that you are not indoctrinating our children. You are not teaching them to hate themselves. You are actually helping prepare our kids to grow, be healthy, and responsible students and citizens as they navigate their future. I realize that I haven't always communicated my support and appreciation for what you do, but now I realize what is at stake and how important it is to be appreciative and engaged. Thank you.
Laura Van Voorhees. And Laura, before you get going, you're going to have our final word this evening. You are.
All right.
And so, another few folks that are on our list, and we'd like to give comments to Miss.
I'm at 45 minutes here.
You get to bring us home.
All right. Well, I'm going to shock you all, I'm sure, because usually I get up here and ream you over the coals, but I'm here to thank you, actually. I have seen such a disconnect between what I hear the parents coming to me and telling me about what's happening in their kids' school and all the research I've been doing, thousands of hours of researching Portrait of a Graduate, who writes it, who's the providers, and I wrote this yesterday to hand out, but I decided not to do that. It's how to recognize critical race theory in Coeur d'Alene schools. And I know it is happening, but it's not happening everywhere. And because I hear things like Dr. Hawker putting out on the 16th, and certain administrators saying we're not teaching critical race theory over and over again, I had to reevaluate what's going on here because I see this great divide between administration, some teachers, and community. And I wanted to offer myself as a bridge to help mend that big gap. And I really appreciate Trustee Morrisroe meeting with me. I really appreciate Ms. Town meeting with me, Kate Kennert meeting with me, and today I met with Katie Grotman. And they convinced me that they don't really understand what critical race theory is. They don't know how to recognize it. And for a lot of parents that have come here from different states to escape that, I'm not a parent, but my daughter was indoctrinated with it, so I recognize that. That's what got me on this journey to understand what critical race theory is and how it ties all together. But a lot of these parents know what it looks like in their schools, and then when they see it here, we have to do something about it. So there is a disconnect. I think we've started really productive talks, and I want to continue those and help educate people that don't understand it, how to understand it, and how I see it, what lens I'm looking at the curriculum through. And that's what I've been doing with the parents, is helping them understand what it is. But I just really want to thank the administrators that have met with me. I open myself to talking with any of you anytime, and being a resource to help heal this community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'll just reiterate that if you weren't able to speak tonight, Dr. Hucker, moment to respond to anything or to illustrate anything?
Well, thank you, Chair Smith, and members of the board. Just really want to take just a second here. I'm not even going to ask for 3 minutes. And first of all, thank every single person that showed up tonight, and for the civility and the messages that were delivered today, and just want you to know how appreciative I am as the superintendent of the school district of tonight's opportunity and the behavior by everybody and the comments that were made. And so again, thank you very much for that. I did want to just reiterate as well, as superintendent of the school district, I'm 100% committed. If anybody's ever read any bio about Dr. Sean Hawker, you absolutely know that to me, all means all. And I just want everybody to be clear. I'm here to try to help each and every student, each and every faculty meeting, and each and every parent that contributes and participates in the function of school. I'm committed to everyone. We do have laws to follow, and those I don't think anybody, Assistant Superintendent Barrett, absolutely never pretends to be an attorney. I never pretend to be an attorney. We are committed to following the laws of the land because I think that's the best avenue that we have right now. The Constitution and the formation of this country is based upon us being civil and following laws and appreciating everybody, and at times that also may mean appreciating differences. There's been a lot of discussion, and rightfully so, in our community over the last little while, especially since the news came out a week or two ago about the horrific tragedy in Virginia. And I think it's just very important to point out, as an educator for a long time myself, I've been fortunate to never have to experience a scenario like that. I don't believe that incident is it's an LGBTQ transgender issue. That issue that happened in my book is a predator issue, and that is I think what makes Coeur d'Alene Public Schools a great place, is that we are all committed to support everybody, each and every person, despite their differences, and to provide the best opportunities that we can. As a father myself of 5, yes, now older and out of school, the single first priority that every educator has is to provide a safe environment for students. And we are 100% committed to do that. Just want the board to know that, as well as the community. All means all to us, and we will do everything that we can to help everybody have an opportunity for success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hucker. All right. Okay, moving on with our agenda this evening then. We have our high school student body reports. And I believe we're going to start with CHS.
Good evening, esteemed board trustees, Superintendent Hawker, district administration, and valued community members. My name is Maya Reitz, and I'm Coeur d'Alene High School's ASB president. And with me tonight is Ellie Morsrell, our ASB vice president.
At Coeur d'Alene High School, we just finished up our very busy homecoming week. First off, our Powder Puff game, which is a girls' football game. We had every single class had a team, and we made over $300 for student council. Next, our parade was also super successful with over 500 students and 24 clubs, activities, and organizations involved. The energy and Viking spirit was awesome, and we were able to get our whole student body involved along with all of Canfield Middle School. Our Spirit Week was also super successful and was won by the juniors, who also won our brand new Spirit Acts, made by our very own junior class vice president, Jack Adams. At our PEP assembly, we held our annual lip sync battle, which was won by the seniors. Each class participated, and there was even a group of staff members who performed. Our homecoming dance was very fun and successful, as over half of the student body attended, and there were no issues. Overall, we had a super successful and fun homecoming week.
We also have some exciting events coming up in the near future. We're going to be having some donation drives, such as our Codes for Kids drive, led by Leadership, our Thanksgiving food drive, ran by Student Council, and our blood drive, which will be run by DECA. We're also excited because planning for Fight for the Fish is ramping up, and we're really hyped about that.
We wanted to take a couple minutes to recognize a few successes we've had at CHS recently. First, our football team won the Kansas City tiebreaker and won first in league. We're super excited for them to go to state and have their first state game at home. Also, our cross-country team swept districts, and both the boys and girls teams won first place, and they both advanced to state. And finally, our Rotary Student of the Month is Maya Reitz.
Congrats. Thanks. CHS Student Council is really thankful for all of your ongoing support and time. Roll Vikes. Ready? Sit up straight.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's awkward. It's awkward.
We also have. No. Okay. Ma.
Thank you, CHS. Next up, we have Lake City High School.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, district administration, and valued community members. My name is Caden Stone, and I'm the ASB president here at Lake City High School. Here with me tonight are my fellow ASB officers, Amber Idema, vice president, Hannah Stoddard, secretary, and Court Weber, treasurer. First off, we would like to take this opportunity to congratulate our varsity girls soccer team for winning the 5A state championship last weekend in Boise. We are so proud of our girls for all their hard work and dedication this season. They represented our community and school so well, and we couldn't be happier for our state champs. We would also like to congratulate all of our fall sports teams on a great fall season. Our boys soccer, cross country, volleyball, and swim teams all did a great job in their respective state tournaments. We are really proud of all their hard work this season. Now I'm going to pass it over to our ASB secretary, Hannah Stoddard, who will be telling you a little bit more about activities coming up at Lake City this month.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Stoddard, and I'm the ASB secretary here at Lake City High School. This past week, our drama department put up its first show of the year, No Fish in the House. A huge shout out is due to our drama director, Mr. Bell, and all of the amazing student actors and producers that made this hilarious and extremely impressive show possible. We are also very excited for all of our students that will be participating in Ski and Snowboard and Trap and Ski Club that are starting this month. With winter sports starting as well, it's a great time to get involved as a T-Wolf. Now I'm going to hand it over to ASB Treasurer Court Weber, who will inform you about some college and career news.
Hi, my name is Court Weber, and I'm the ASB Treasurer at Lake City. In college preparation news, College Application Week was last month, and our College and Career Advisor, Lauren Georges, along with our college prep teacher, Amy Alderman, have helped 300 of our seniors apply to Idaho colleges. This is a huge accomplishment, and the two have helped seniors do so many things, like finding scholarships, scheduling visits with college representatives, and keeping our students informed on the FAFSA and College and Career Fair nights. Next up, you'll hear from ASB Vice President Amber Idema on what we have been doing through our school this entire month.
Hello everyone, my name is Amber Idema, and I'm the ASB Vice President here at Lake City High School. This last Thursday, our Junior Student Council held a trunk or treat in the parking lot of our school for kids K through 5. This was a very successful event that included a lot of people in the community, and everyone had a lot of fun. As well, our school has partnered with Swift MTSS to provide emotional, academic, behavioral, and social support for our students. Our school psych counselor, Kelsey Ferguson, our student council, and our counselors are all very much looking forward to using this opportunity to further student support. Our school spirit has also been at an all-time high this year, and we have taken steps to further this by choosing 13 seniors and 1 junior to be the Alphas, which are student section leaders for winter sports. The Alphas have always been our leaders for excitement, sportsmanship, and school spirit, and we cannot wait to see this group of individuals further that tradition. We've also begun planning for Fight for the Fish for 2022, and we have some big things in store that we cannot wait to share with the community.
Thank you to the board for the opportunity to come speak with you tonight, and we'll see you again next month. Go T-Wolves.
Thank you, Lake City. Next up, we have Venture.
Venture students had the opportunity to team up with the University of Idaho and the Department of Environmental Quality to visit Corbin Park in Post Falls. The goal was to collect data on temperature, clarity, oxygen levels, and do a biodiversity of the insects in the water. The teams collaborated with each other and will then share the data with the university and other local high schools. The students are going to use their findings to help them narrow down project ideas for their Make It Science class. In Mr. Mahoney's math class, students have been designing, building, and launching rockets with the aim of creating an exhibit night project. The goal was to teach visitors trigonometry through real-life examples while practicing their critical and analytical thinking skills. mornings, the Venture High School teachers use the opportunity to better facilitate student learning experiences. This year, the teachers are focusing on the workshop model and the essential question, how do we teach for understanding? The main question of this workshop was, what does the understanding look like and sound like? In Olga Mahjan's personal finances class, they focused on the influence of social media and spending. Students explored various tactics that influencers and brands use to market products through social media. After they learned some tactics used by social media influencers, students brainstormed statements they could tell themselves to combat the urge to purchase something based on these techniques. During the last week of October, Venture High School held their annual Spirit Week. The school was decorated, a door decoration contest was held, and every day students were encouraged to dress up with various themes. Tuesday was Pajama Day. Wednesday was Decades Day. Thursday focused on cartoon characters. And Friday was Halloween Costume Day. The day ended with room-to-room trick-or-treating sponsored by the leadership class.
Thank you, Venture. And I think next we'll have K-Tech.
When you're done with high school grade,
Hello, my name is Gray. I am a senior at Lake City High School, and these are my 2 junior classmates. Hi, I'm Gavin from Post Falls High School.
hello, I'm Katrina from Lakeland High School.
We've had a very busy year here at K-Tech so far. We started off with basic safety and principles of an industrial environment and how we should go about that. Now, as you can see behind us, we have some teardowns of engines and what we are going through and what we should expect and basic tools. We've had a lot of visitors come talk to us about a lot of job opportunities in the military level. Navy, National Guard, Air Force, and Marines.
We've also had visitors from colleges and industries to prepare us for what certifications we need, including Craig from Western States CAT, Mike White Ford, UTI, and Cea Report.
When you're done with high school grade, what are you going to do?
I'm currently enlisted in the United States Navy, and I'm working on becoming a Navy SEAL.
Gavin?
After high school, my goal is to go be a train operator or be a Marine for the Navy.
Katrina?
I plan on becoming an aviation mechanic.
Thank you, K-Tech. Thank you. Moving on, we're going to have the SAG Leadership Report for information, and I believe that's Ainsley Brigham from SAG. And is she going to be on this screen? There she is. I'm going to zoom in.
Yes. Hi, I am here meeting through Zoom today. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ainsley Brigham. I am this year's chair of the Student Advisory Group, and I also have here with me today on the call is our new advisor, Ms. Rachel Carnes. I would like to first start off with thanking the trustees for being able here to listen and willing to listen to the students' wishes and concerns here tonight. I would like to start off with just readdressing the purpose and missionary statement of SAG, and it is to represent student voices, ideas, and concerns, and bring these voices to the school board meetings, which is what I'm here to do today. I would like to quickly give a short summary of what was discussed at each level of our students, from elementary to middle school and then to high school. As far as elementary school goes, the elementary SAG representatives have discussed their most pressing concerns right now in the district and what areas that would be appropriate to bring to the school board meetings. The students have discussed class sizes, adding dyslexic books in libraries, and having more sport activities after school. And they also have talked about school lunches at the elementary level. Again, this is just to share what we have been talking about in our SAG levels, and we will present our wants and needs to the future, or we will properly present these wants and needs to the future if need be, but this is just a share. As far as middle school level goes, the middle school SAG representatives have discussed cyberbullying, the bathroom locker destruction, buses, bathrooms, and choices that are being made by students, and also including dress code. As far as the high school level goes, the high school did not discuss the concerns this month, but focused on the student feedback on the 3 upcoming schedule options through a student-made survey by one of our SAG representatives. I would like to start off with talking about the student survey feedback and what we got back from that. It is important to note that out of the survey responses, 57% of the students attended Lake City High School, 43% of the students attended Coeur d'Alene High School. 63% of those students preferred the 8-period block, while 60% of all respondents preferred the 8-period AB block, and about 31% preferred the 6-period traditional schedule. And overall, the least preferred schedule was the 7-period modified block with an 8%. The majority of the students at Lake City wanted an AB block, and the majority of the students at CHS was split with the 6-period traditional schedule and also the 7-period modified block. We also included many value questions, which included Lake City and what their wants and needs are going into this new schedule and new chapter of the school. Lake City's biggest values were to have more electives, to have more time in class each day, and to have more time in core classes like English, math, science, etc. CHS's values, what they want looking into these schedules, included seeing the same teachers every day, starting later in the morning, and having more electives. Unfortunately, no schedule completely fulfills both values, but similarly, both having lots of values and concerns as a student. I would like to share that Ms. Carnes can share this to you electronically, the survey results to the Board of Trustees if you would like to see that. And we also have had a student representative from SAG analyze all the data and filled out a document talking about that. So there's also all of those data points with that analysis of the data results recorded from one of those SAG students that we are happy to share with you. Overall, this month has been a really good starting month for our SAG group. And as far as the high school students go, we are planning to meet this Thursday. Again, I would like to thank you guys for taking our time and taking the students' voices into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Ainsley. I don't know if you can hear us or not, but thank you for being here. And yes, we would love to see that all that data put together and sent to us for sure. So thank you for all that work. And sounds like you guys have a lot on your plate.
I will get that shared to all of you as quickly and as best as I can. Thank you guys again. I really do appreciate it.
Terrific. Thank you, Ainsley. Next up, we have our CEA report and Erin Hayes, president of CEA. Thank you.
Sorry for messing up the mic. Someone worked really hard on that. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much, board, and Dr. Hawker, and thank you very much for the community folks who were able to make it today. Just a couple brief things today, nothing too dramatic. Last month, we ratified our contract, so anyone who was involved in that, we really appreciate finally getting that taken care of, and hopefully we can get towards solving all the fine print of the APE funding and all of the other things that we still haven't quite figured out. As I'm stepping into the role of being in part of the CAPS team, I'm really impressed, and I want to thank the district for their responsiveness to the problems that we're bringing to that, and hopefully we'll be able to solve everything that comes up this year that we that we can talk about. One of the maybe quixotic issues that we're bringing to the CAPS as a union is the challenge of the new teacher recruitment and the difficulty of settling in this area, the rising housing costs, the rental costs, And I can't say I have any good answers for you. I just want to emphasize that we're all in this together. These are all inextricably tied together, whether it's recruiting classified staff or recruiting new teachers or substitutes. These are all things that the entire community needs. And so trying to come up with a solution to these issues is, I think, important. And we're a big organization. I think we have some tools that we may be able to use on that. I'll continue to say this throughout the year, that money is the second most valuable currency in this community, next to respect. And our teachers and the remarkable classified staff that we work with are here with a mission, and they're committed to the kids and the community. And so if we can't, because of the, times are tight, if money isn't going to be the first solution, then I'd encourage us to look at the policy decisions of, the workload, sick days, resources, time commitments, all these things that might be able to communicate that level of respect for the folks who are still working here. And I know that's not going to necessarily bring a lot of folks in, but it will certainly be a step in keeping our people here. So, as always, I'm happy to answer questions, but for the moment, that's all I'm going to bring this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Aaron this evening? Yeah, if you couldn't hear Miss May, but housing for sure, and I think partnering as well with our community and some of the organizations that are working. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda tonight.
A little different. I would just ask that there's a personnel issue that's on the agenda, not an issue, but no matter. I'd like to discuss an executive session. We're not scheduled for that tonight. So I'd request that we table item A tonight and take that up at the next possible available time, whether we have to schedule a special meeting for that or at our next.
I have a motion to table A of our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve B through H of our consent agenda items?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to our consent. Contracted services. That's just for information. Any questions on any of the information items there for tonight? Consideration of assessment and student achievement information tonight. I'm assuming that is Dr. Nelson. Here we are. There's Dr.
I'm up here.
Nelson. Thank you.
Good evening, Vice Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board. Welcome to November. And it is just now under a quarter of the way through the school year, and our teachers are preparing their first progress reports for conferences coming up this month. On today's presentation, I have a few updates on student performance, specifically around FastBridge, civics, and I'd like to also take you into our dashboard to look at attendance in a little bit deeper level as well. So we'll share our screen and take you through. So I always like to start our presentations off with our Student Assessment Bill of Rights. Specifically, we run through these Bill of Rights before any assessment that is provided to our students. We need our students, as well as our parents and guardians, to know the purpose, the targets, what means good on the assessment, what means we need to improve on the assessment, and most of all, that we only select assessments that accurately represent what our students can and cannot do. Specifically, the fifth one I'd like to spend a little bit of time on as we dive into our data this month Also is, what do we do once we get data? So specifically, I'd like to take a few moments through that tunnel. Everything that we do with our data points, every datum tells a story, and we have identified how we process that through a document called the Comprehensive Assessment Plan, which is pictured in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That is accessible by anyone in our community under our strategic plan, which is at cdaschools.org/strategic plan. It's all one word. In there, it talks about the different types of data that we would collect. Certainly, we can understand that assessment data is a big piece of my job, but it's not just the data on assessments. We want our kids to be able to grow in that area, but we also have to take a look at how that data connects to other areas. For example, our demographic data. We'll slice our data a little bit tonight in different areas to show you how different groups of students are performing. Maybe we need to put a little bit of emphasis into one group of students to make sure that they're achieving to the same level as their peers. Perceptual data. We have surveys that are mandated either through our state or utilized throughout our district. In addition, each of our schools have school learning plans. So we'd like to know, well, what are the focus areas of each of our individual buildings? And are there areas that they need to be able to measure as well? Whenever we get our results, they usually come in 4 different data sets. Most of what we spend our time on is in the classroom. And this top one, these informal assessments. It's a show of hands in classrooms. It's an exit ticket. And these are the types of assessments that allow our teachers to create dynamic lesson plans, to be responsive to the needs of the kids the next day that they see them. We also offer a variety of curricular assessments. Again, many of those could be teacher generated, but many of the curricular materials that are purchased by our districts have small quizzes and tests that are generated by that. Additionally, we offer end of course assessments. Those are a measure of our curricula. Finally, we have 2 that are larger group buckets. The first is a norm referenced assessment, which allows us to look at our data set and our data as to how it compares with other students in a sample. It could be a sample from our own district when we compare building to building. It could be a larger statewide sample, such as the ISAT, or it could be a national sample, such as an AP exam. The other piece of that are criterion reference assessments, and these are usually measures of standards. So the ISAT, for example, is a criterion referenced assessment. It is measuring students' abilities when compared to the Idaho standards that are adopted by our legislature. Whenever we take all of these pieces, we look at them through the lens of our viewers, and we try to process and provide data to all of our stakeholders in a variety of different ways. The first is through a set of internal dashboards. These are all secured. Our district staff log in to be able to see their own data set. For a classroom teacher, they get to see how their students are performing. For building administrators, they get to see the entire system. For district administrators, you get the idea. The other is an external dashboard, and we'll highlight that in just a few moments because much of our data is in aggregate and available for anybody in the community to be able to see how we're performing. We offer a variety of key performance indicators, KPIs. The third is via student printed reports. In fact, we received our last reports from Fastbridge about a week ago, and we sent communication out to parents throughout the district that they should be able to see those data coming home, and we'll be able to provide that so that they can see growth from different windows. And then finally, we do offer some data that is posted in our student management system. Skyward is a dynamic, strong database, but it is not very strong visually, so we don't have a lot of capacity to post things like reports to Skyward. But it's something that they are aware of and they are hoping to address along the way. But we do provide a lot of our data on transcripts such as ACT, SAT scores, which usually are provided to colleges and universities. You do also, I would love to also reinforce that we take great responsibility in protecting our student performance data. At no time do we share student data with outside agencies unless there is a signed data use agreement. Usually that will come from a care provider or a third-party college or university who's asking more specific information about a particular student. We also, under no circumstances, sell any of our student data. Last thing is a little bit of a plug. Again, we have been taking a lot of pride in posting our data up on our district website at cdaschools.org. Once you are there, you can click on the blue About Us and choose Data Dashboards, and you'll be able to choose a variety of different lenses. We have a district dashboard, which gives you the 10,000-foot view of all of our system. And then if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper, you can look at our elementary dashboard, middle school dashboards, or high school dashboards. So all of the data that we're looking at today is freely available on there. And if you have any questions, certainly I could direct you to the dashboard, or we can spend some time also diving into that. But I do hope that that is friendly to our community. The first data point that I'd like to take a look at this evening is from FastBridge. FastBridge provides us a universal screener in reading and mathematics, and we also have an optional social emotional screener that has had limited use, and we'll talk about each of those in just a moment. We have 3 windows a year in which we provide the FastBridge assessments. There's a fall, a winter, and a spring. So anybody, student, parent, faculty, staff, will be able to look at growth over those 3 windows. And again, we provide it in reading and mathematics, but it's a screener. So ultimately what it says is that this student is in this particular norm group. And if we have any concern that a student may not be growing as well, this is not going to be the type of assessment that's going to get very granular, that a student may have a difficulty in this standard. It is not a criterion referenced assessment. Instead, what it is it gives us a stoplight approach that a student may need to be checked in with or have some extra needs that aren't being addressed. I'd like to spend a few moments working with reading, then go into mathematics specifically. So let's take a look at our reading data. Our data comes out in norms, again, and we have 4 different scoring levels. The red identifies high risk. These are students that are well below the national norm at this particular level. Yellow would indicate some risk. A green would indicate low risk. And blue would be at the 85th percentile or greater, meaning that the student is on a potential collegiate pathway. I have 2 sets of data up on the screen for you now. Again, in reading, we've provided this assessment consistently for grades 6 through 12 over the last 2 years. So we have the ability to compare our student populations. We had about 300 students different, so I would say that this would be a normed population that we have. And we had the same students scoring at risk in the fall of last year. Then we did, for the current school year, 15% in our highest area of risk. In our low or some risk category, we did have 2% more. That could be represented right here because we actually had 2% fewer students scoring in the low risk category, but the same amount of students right now at the collegiate pathway as we have in the high risk category. Again, these skills are being measured, foundational skills, literature, language, informational reading, but a teacher may need to do some additional work to be able to fully understand what's going on. Let's go through our mathematics results. When we compare these populations, it is going to be slightly different because of the fact that we have a large sample size difference. This year, because of our adoption of a different title other than Ready Math or Ready Classroom Math, we actually moved our mathematics down to our sixth grade levels for FastBridge. So we have 2,100 more students in the population. So this data may not represent as well, but it is a measure of potential risk, again, in mathematics. And at those particular grade levels, we actually had 3% fewer students categorizing in the high risk area, 2% fewer showing some risk, and growth in both the collegiate pathway and low risk categories. 4% more students qualify in collegiate pathway than in the previous year. So what do we see when we look at these data? Our instructional core has had an opportunity to give us some feedback along the way, and we did see the number of students moving into the collegiate pathway as a positive. That we also stayed fairly consistent in reading, which means that we're progressing as normal. Certainly the last 2 years have not been normal, but for this particular assessment, we see a consistent level of growth. If that is the case, we should also be able to see those green bars grow quite a bit over the course of this year. We did, however, see that a majority of students do have some risk in the areas of reading and mathematics. And this is not unusual because of the fact that we're at the very beginning of the year. This assessment usually is taken within the first 30 days of the school year, and we're at day 40 right now. So it is not unusual that we would see some students showing areas of risk. But we do have an opportunity. We want to see these students grow at least a tier along the way, and we have provided a lot of supports for students and staff to be able to use these data effectively. So with strong tier 1 instruction, which is what you would find in a typical classroom, we do believe that things will move up. So we've created a target that 20% of our students will move up a level by the time that we present data to you again in January. Finally, when looking at our FastBridge data, I also wanted to address the My Sabers screener. This was a component of our FastBridge subscription that allows us to screen for potential social, emotional, behavioral issues. It is an opt-in assessment, of which I have up here, and we did have a limited sample size of parents who opted in. A parent or guardian might contact the counselor and say, hey, I'm worried about how my student is showing behaviors in this particular area. And so we did have some students in grades 2 through 12 of which the parent opted in for. When they take the assessment, they are given a 20-question quiz, and it's on a Likert scale from never to almost always. And the questions are very similar to this: I argue with others. The student then plops their answer in that particular Likert scale. And what we get as a result is an area of potential growth. So this sample data that you see on the screen would indicate that this particular student's low in confidence in social acceptability. So when a counselor is working in and collaboration with the parent or guardian, they have the opportunity to be able to target specific behaviors that may be in need. We are in the process of printing reports and providing these results back in and providing some additional support to our elementary, middle school, and high school counselors for using this as a tool available to them along the way. Because I'm not able to be with you this evening, I'd love to be able to stop for a few moments, and Trustee Smith, if for whatever reason you or any of the trustees may have a question, I'd love to be able to answer.
Thank you for that report tonight. I had a couple quick questions. The first one is when we were discussing the student management system, do we automatically report student tests to their transcript? Opportunity to decide whether they wanted that test recorded or not. I feel like that's a question that we get a lot, and I thought it was an opt-in that we can tell the counselor which test the student wants to report. Is that correct?
The only ones that will automatically end up on the transcript are the SAT. ACT and AP scores are opt-in, so those will be provided if a student would like them in or a parent or guardian requests them in. SAT scores, for example, if you have a student who takes multiple SATs, they may opt to choose or to post their only highest score, but those can be suppressed test by test.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping you were going to say, so I just wanted to clarify that for our parents. The second question is, we've had a lot of feedback about the FastBridge, the MySabers screener, and I think there was some misunderstanding that potentially this data was being sent anywhere. Is anyone receiving, if a parent chooses to opt in, who receives this data, and is it stored, is it collected, what do we do with the data?
FastBridge itself collects the data. It is not being stored in our internal dashboards. It is not being posted to our external dashboards, and it is not being provided to any external agencies or allowed that data to be exported for pay. The only reports that are happening are being shared with our providers within the building and the parent or guardian.
And it is correct, I see it on here, but a parent must actually opt their child in to receive or participate in this test. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is a parent opt-in. There is an opt-in form that we have provided to all of our counselors. So as they're talking about or talking with students and then talking with their parents or guardians, it is provided to them if there is interest on behalf of the parent and guardian.
Great. And then the last question is that as a parent, I received some FastBridge data myself, and so I was curious after receiving maps several years ago. The FastBridge report didn't seem as though it had very much information for parents. It kind of had the 4 criteria that we were talking about: high risk, some risk, low risk, but it didn't have any ideas of areas of weakness for students. And I recognize that it's a screener, it's not a criterion reference test, but is there any other option that we could provide parents? So if a student's struggling with reading comprehension or in mathematics, I see it lists out expressions and equations, that it might give parents some idea of where they could assist their students if they needed to.
I would say that it is a weakness of FastBridge as a platform, Trustee May. The family report is limited. However, they do have an individual skills report, which does get very granular. I can give you an example for my own students in the district. My son's individual student report was 12 pages long. It basically breaks down each assessment into skills that are mastered, skills that are currently being developed. And when we were looking at it, felt that it was overload to be able to provide that much data. I think we might be able to find a middle ground, and I would love to be able to have some of your ideas as well. We could certainly take a look at any of the FastBridge reports that are available to us and see what may work.
Yeah, it just seems like it's a great opportunity, since students do take this throughout the year, to identify early potential weaknesses. It seems like conference time might be a good place where we could discuss a more detailed report with parents, and it might give them more insight how their students are doing in class. But thank you. This was a great presentation tonight.
Well, thank you. Hopefully I continue and make it just as good. Any other questions from our trustees?
No, I think we can continue that on to your next section.
Okay, well, we've got some good news to share also about our civics assessment. Our civics assessment is, again, provided 4 times a year. And we cover the brand new civics assessment. It was updated in 2020 at the end of the change, or at the change of the last presidential administration. It used to be 100 questions. Now it is 128 questions, covering a variety of topics that concern all of us as active citizens. American government, rights and responsibilities, American history, symbols within our own civic government and state, as well as holidays. Once a student passes the civics assessment, it is given a milestone, so they never have to take it again, and it's available for anywhere in grades 7 through 12. We had 233 students take the fall civics assessment window. A majority of those happened to attend the school that you're all sitting in right now at Lake City High School. About 95% of all of the students who took in the fall window came from LCHS, with about 5.5% coming from Venture High School. And I'm pleased to tell you that on the fall window, we had almost an 88% passage rate. Again, brand new tests, so our students and staff were somewhat unfamiliar with it, but the passage rate was high. Last year's overall average for our district was just under 74%, so we're out to an outstanding start. We did have a chance to be able to take a look at our data, as well as ask for some feedback from our Lake City High School staff, from which a majority of the students participated. We did find some great news that students passed on the first try, That is wonderful. Again, they are banked. They never have to be able to complete that again. That does also go up on the transcript. We did have some struggle, however. Some of the questions are called selected response, and those are those dastardly questions which ask for multiple answers that more than one can be correct. So we need to build some resilience in that area. And we did not have any other students from Coeur d'Alene High School, nor any of our middle school students assess in this particular round. It could be an opportunity for us to make sure that all students are aware that they can take it. So we definitely have a goal and a target that all of our seniors will pass by the end of this academic year. May I move on to attendance?
Please.
This is one that I think is going to be very interesting for us to take a look at. And again, all of our data is available up on our data dashboard. It's important for us to remember a couple of key points, some of which was mentioned in public comment this evening. Idaho pays our school districts based on attendance, not enrollment. Last year was an exception. They did experiment with an enrollment-based model. So we are not fully funded if students do not attend regularly. I would love to be able to take a look at where we're at. Our first payment from the state is expected this month, and I'd like to be able to show you how we are comparing comparative to other years. I have 3 blue bars up on the screen from the last 3 years before, so the 19 school year, the 20 school year, the 21 school year, and our current school year. Now, I know, first of all, that this is not an equal comparison because we have 3 full school years in blue and a partial school year in red, just under a quarter of the way full. But at this particular point, we're about 15% off of normal. And when I look at the data that is comprising this, a great majority of the absences that we're seeing are categorized as illness. It's about 33% of all absences that we're seeing are marked as illness. And we don't often get much more granular than that. But we are seeing the results of our reminders to parents and guardians that if students are not feeling well, they really do need to stay home. I wanted to also break that down for you to be able to see, where is that coming from? Where is that 15% at? So you see the same data set now, comparative English language arts, our elementary, middle school, high school data. The elementary is in purple, middle school data is in red or orange, and our high school data is in yellow. So when a student is enrolled, we chart attendance in elementary twice each day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. We actually see a 19% drop currently in what we would call regular attendance over the past 3 years in elementary. It does pare down a little bit more in middle school and high school. We measure attendance by period. We do, however, still see a 15% drop in our middle school attendance and a 9% drop currently in our high school attendance. Certainly, we all recognize some of the challenges that we are seeing right now, and I know that we do emphasize attendance. In fact, I received a couple of emails today about the importance of attendance from our own students' schools. Other than that, I do have another picture to show the good work that is going on. I had the honor of being in 2 buildings today. I'm always astounded with the good work that our students are doing, and I would love to be able to answer any further questions from you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Any further questions?
Good evening, Dr. Nelson. Thank you for the presentation. My only question or maybe concern is around the civic test. I know I feel like I say this every time, but I think your pie chart showed it pretty well that we have varying degrees of offering of this test between our buildings. I think you showed there no middle schools offered it, and I would venture to guess that it wasn't offered at Coeur d'Alene High if they had 0 participants or 0 class. And so I just have that as a concern because it is a graduation requirement. I know my own student who's a senior. I do not believe she's taken it. And just as a parent, I think it's worrisome that we're putting that to the end for some of our students when it's something they could handle much earlier in their career. So I'd love to see us have a little more uniformity on how we offer this test. I believe some schools offer it in class, and it's kind of part of their process. Maybe Woodland that does that in the spring. I can't remember. It seems like one of the middle schools does it, and always has very high participation levels.
Correct. We do see most of our middle schools taking in the spring. Coeur d'Alene High School tends to do most of their testing in the December window, so that would be the next window coming up. But I agree with you, and that's why we put it in as a target. And the only challenge is the exam is closed outside of the school day, so it must be taken during the school day. And we do provide all of the links and information to our classroom teachers, but it's ultimately up to them as to when they provide that instruction to students and give them an opportunity to be able to do that. I agree with you, however. I don't want to leave this to the last minute knowing that it's a graduation requirement. But I'm also heartened to know that in the 3 years that we've had this requirement, that we have never had a student not pass the civics assessment. We've done just about everything to give them all of the opportunities possible to be able to do so. But I agree with you. I think we do have an opportunity.
Thank you.
Dr. Nelson.
Anything else for you?
I think we'll move on then. At our audit report. Katie, you're gonna.
Oh, okay. We have our independent audit firm on the line on Zoom, Michelle Hanneline, and I believe Natalie as well from Magnuson McHugh are going to present our just an overview of our audit. We have provided audited financial statements, and that is going to be posted, the PDF, the district's website, information page. So it's
all right. Good evening.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go?
We're ready.
All right. Well, good evening, and I just would like to introduce myself, and it's a pleasure to be here first to present the Coeur d'Alene School District Financial Statement Audit. My name is Michelle Hanline, and I'm the President and Director of Audit for Magnuson McHugh and Company. And I also want to introduce here with me, and it's actually not Natalie, but it is Laura Parasita and Corby Baker. They're both managers with the firm and very, very involved with all aspects of the Coeur d'Alene School District's audit. So I thought it would be good to have them along for the presentation. And to start, I will just say that we're just going to do a high-level overview of what an audit is, why it is required, and give the results of the audit, and then some financial highlights, and then open it up for any questions. So in doing so, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everyone see that? Okay, I'm assuming yes. All right, so I'll go ahead and start with what is an audit. A financial statement audit is an examination and evaluation of the financial statements to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. This is the majority of the audit that we go through. Also, management is responsible for the presentation of the financial statements, and the auditor expresses an opinion on the information provided. In addition, we don't actually express an opinion on your internal controls. However, we do perform an evaluation of your internal controls, and how we do this is by performing walkthroughs of all your internal control cycles and perform tested transactions to ensure that the internal controls implemented and operating as designed. And lastly, we perform a single audit. This is a compliance type of audit in relationship to your federal awards. This is to ensure that the compliance type of audit is to ensure that the federal awards that have been expended are done in accordance with grant requirements. Okay, why is an audit required? Well, any entity receiving federal funds is subject to a financial statement audit under the government auditing standards and also in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards, which is also known as GAAP. In addition, if the federal government receives or requires, has expenditures in excess of $750,000, then that is what is also called a single audit, and so you are also required to have that. In addition, an audit is required under state statutes, and that is why it's done annually. Okay, so just to go over a few of the audit results, I'm pleased to announce that you are once again receiving an unqualified opinion. This is more commonly referred to a clean opinion, and it is the highest level of opinion that you can receive in an audit. What this states is that your financial statements have reasonable assurance that the statements are free from material misstatement. Management is also required to have adequate presentation and adequate disclosure, and this was done appropriately as well. The second report that we have in your financial statements is on pages 68 and 69. This is the internal control over financial reporting and compliance. We consider the internal controls to determine the audit procedures that are appropriate for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the financial statements. If there were any deficiencies in internal controls, this is where we would inform you of that deficiency. But I'm happy to report there were no significant deficiencies found in this fiscal year. And then the last report that we provide is the compliance with major federal programs, or single audit, as I've been referring to. This is on pages 70 and 71. And this is to express an opinion on the compliance for major federal programs. This year, we did test the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or also known as ESSER 1 from the CARES Act. We also tested Coronavirus Relief Fund, and lastly, the IDEA-B Special Education Cluster. And once again, I'm happy to announce that there were no findings in regards to the compliance over these federal funds. Now I'd like to turn you to the management discussion and analysis. This is on page 3 through 14 of the audited financial statements. And this is actually prepared by Katie Ebner, Director of Finance. And this gives a much more detailed analysis and understanding of what has happened in the school district's last fiscal year. She discussed the management analysis of the year's activities, the financial highlights, and also gives a future outlook for the district. And I highly encourage you to read that. It is the most interesting part of the audit report. Okay, just to touch on a couple financial highlights. District finished the year with a general fund balance of a little under $4.5 million, which represents 5.72% of total expenditures. This was a decrease of almost $1.9 million from prior year. This was due to several reasons. One of the reasons is the actual state revenues in the general fund were $2.5 million under budget and is down $4.3 million from a decrease in prior year. And this is due for twofold, mostly from the state holdbacks and the decreased enrollment and attendance, and therefore the state funding has not come through as it has in prior years, as was just recently discussed. In addition, the actual expenditures in the general fund were actually under the $1.1 million under budget. This is due to many different types of significant changes in the expenditures this year, mainly due to COVID-related cuts, federal COVID relief allocations, and additional unbudgeted costs to COVID-19. And again, I refer you to page 5 of the MD&A for a significant summary of all the additional information regarding the changes in expenditures from prior year and also to budget. Here's just a snapshot of the general fund revenues. As you can see, 73% of the general fund revenues come from the state. In addition, the 27% comes from property taxes. And there's very little, if none, other local revenues that come into the general fund. Touch base on the general fund expenditures, just to point out here that you can see the majority of the expenditures are spent on elementary and secondary programs, with the remainder of it just scattered throughout all the different types of general fund expenditures. Can we talk about a little bit about an assigned fund balance and why is it important? So revenue stream is not consistent from month to month in a government school district. Property taxes and state revenue come in at different times during the year and in different amounts. Also, it is necessary to protect the district from unnecessary borrowing. In addition, it's prudent to hold resources to meet unexpected emergencies, such as catastrophic events, recessions, increased fuel costs, snow removal, and of course, a pandemic. In addition, it meets the uncertainties of the state and federal funding, as we've mentioned, the state cuts, and also not knowing when the federal funding is coming through. Help ensure a credit rating that would qualify the district for lower interest costs in case of needed borrowing, and also to help ensure future stability. So where are you at with your assigned fund balance? Well, right now, the GFOA, or the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends a minimum of general purpose governments to maintain no less than 1 to 2 months of regular general fund operating expenditures. Your current fund balance is at $4.5 million, or approximately 15 days of expenditures. Now, with that being said, you are still exceeding the minimum fund balance requirements outlined in your board policy. That is just a recommendation from the GFOA. Just to touch base on a few other developments that had occurred in the last fiscal year. As you know, there were several different sources for COVID relief. 2 of those are the ESSER 1 funds that came in just under $1.7 million, and also the COVID federal relief funds of about $3.5 million. Both of the revenues and expenditures for these type of funds were spent during the fiscal year, and in addition, they are now being reported under a special revenue fund and are not included with the general fund. So you will not see it in the general fund revenue or expenditures. Both of these funds were subject to the single audit, as I mentioned earlier, and so therefore we reviewed the compliance requirements, which were fully met. Also, your construction projects, you had about $3.9 million in capital outlay. This does include the school bus purchases, and it also completed the 2017 construction bonds. And lastly, another development, you did have a new standard implemented this year. It's GASB number 84 on fiduciary activities. This is related to student body funds, or also referred to as agency funds in the past. They are now being required to be reported as a special revenue fund. We'll see if you're looking at the changes in net position. Your beginning net assets increased by almost $1.4 million to include the prior year net assets previously reported as agency funds. There's no actual changes to the controls or those type of things with the, your student body funds. They're just being reported differently in your audited financial report. And that's all I have, unless you have other questions.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Hi, Michelle. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just curious, on fund balance, I know this is something that comes up every year, but you guys audit a number of government entities and school districts. Just curious how many of those hold 30 plus days of expenses in their fund balance?
It varies. 2 of the other school districts are actually over the 30-day benchmark. But it does definitely varies from school district to school district.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you again for being here tonight. You said right at the beginning that this was a clean audit. Can you tell me more about what that means?
It means that we have an unqualified opinion, meaning there are no qualifications to the audit opinion, meaning we were able to opine on all aspects of the financial statement and that they were reported without material misstatement.
And
in
so
some cases, if there's a problem with a financial statement audit, we can qualify or potentially even have an adverse opinion, which would mean that we would not be able to express an opinion on the financials.
And so what's the difference between that and a forensic audit?
A forensic audit is done in much more detail and is usually done when you are under legal proceedings or getting ready for court proceedings, or if there is a concern of fraud. If there is a significant concern for fraud, typically you see a forensic audit not necessarily on an entity as a whole, but in a specific area that there would be concerns or their concerns have risen to the level that you would need to investigate.
Okay, and so would that be something that you would lift up then, having just done our audit even, and you would point out and say there's findings that would, so is that something your Magnuson?
Yes, if anything came to our attention that indicated any source of fraud or concern for fraud, we would be bringing that to your attention.
Okay.
We do fraud interviews of several different people within the district, and also perform significant tests of controls and tests of transactions in addition to substantive testing. So it is a very comprehensive audit, and therefore if you had a concern that there was a risk of fraud, we would bring that to your attention now.
Okay, so you're not finding anything at all that would give you any concern or anything? I mean, what I heard you say is Katie and her team is doing an excellent job and there's no reason for concern?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask one more question. Just, I want to clarify in my mind. So when you're testing controls, I think is your term you use, your CPA term, that's really just verifying invoices and those sorts of things versus what the records show?
Yeah, there's different, we do walkthroughs of your internal controls so that we have a thorough understanding of what the intent was for the control. And then we do tested transactions, which are testing to make sure that all those ticks and ties are done. And we do this on several levels of transactions. And I don't, is there anything else that you want to chime in, Laura or Corby, on additional tests that we might perform regarding the tested transactions?
The only thing I would add is to what you're saying, Michelle, is that when we're doing these different tests of transactions, we're looking at the policies that have already been put in place. And so we're looking at that to say, are you following the policy that goes with this control? That's another element that we would look at. And if we weren't seeing that process done properly, that's also something to bring up.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee May has a question for Katie.
First, Katie, I wanted to thank you for your hard work and your commitment to your job. I think this is another year of a clean audit, so for our community to see hard work that everybody is doing to make on track and spending within our means. I think the next thing I'd like to highlight is the initial page that she was discussing, the management discussion and analysis. I think that's important for our community, people that are here tonight and watching, to take a look at that, because I think it really outlines why we're finding ourselves with the deficit this year. And I think it brings up a couple important points, and I think Nelson highlighted one of the pieces, and that's our drop. So I think the issue between important, and I know we've been discussing this for many years, between enrollment base and so I just wanted to hear your thoughts on knowing that we've had a decrease in attendance rate this year going forward. How do you think that could potentially impact our budget? And have you heard anything more at a state level if they're going to go back to discussing potentially an enrollment-based funding model, make it easier for districts like ours to plan accordingly? I know that's a two-part question, but important to highlight.
Yeah, so the attendance that is potentially going to adversely affect our funding this year is based on average daily attendance as it was pre-COVID. Last year there was that we would be based, and there was discussion in the legislative session last spring that we may go back to enrollment, and then eventually it was decided that we would be on average daily attendance. That is decided in the legislative session, so since then we've seen that the Delta variant has caused more illness than probably anybody would have expected last spring. So I think there is still a possibility that the legislature would make a decision to go back to enrollment for this current fiscal year, but everything we have as of now is that we're attendance-based. There are some safeguards in the formula that would help us not take as much hit as we potentially would if the formula didn't have any safeguards. There's also the fact that attendance doesn't have to be in person, so if a student is engaged in instruction while they are out, so if a teacher is tracking that they are keeping up with assignments, engaging in blended learning, that their attendance would count for our funding. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. You know, it's my hope that the legislature would change for this current year back to enrollment. So,
had any updates as far as what they were talking, if there may be any considerations? The last question is, I think the only concern that I would have is I would like to see our fund balance grow back to 30 days. I think last year that's about where we were, and I safer number, it feels safer for in this situation. So I appreciate Trustee Morris's comment on that. Do you anticipate this year as we right-side our budget that we can work towards closer to a 30-day?
So yeah, last year we had sort of a unique event as far as state funding. We were funded based on there was a year-end change in the way that during the closure they counted perfect attendance essentially, and that was before we had lost any enrollment. So that gave our fund balance a boost. And kind of an unnatural boost in state funding that normally wouldn't have occurred. And so that put us in a pretty good position as far as fund balance at year end. However, this year the state's gone the other way, and that we've taken a hit about equal to what our boost was. So it would be, I think it's a great goal for the district financially. We also have to look at, you know, continuing to operate at a level that we, so we can serve all the students in our community, whether they choose to come back or not. You know, right-sizing our budget very quickly just in response to a drop in enrollment might be a strategy. However, we don't know if students are coming back. In past years, we've had a recession where we've lost enrollment, and we knew that the students were moving out of town. We had that data. These students haven't necessarily moved out of town, so we have a legal obligation to accept them if they want to come back. So it's just a matter of the right sizing process. We have to wait for our enrollment to stabilize, and then also prove that this is our new enrollment before we start making cuts as far as capacity.
That's a really great point. It does seem like our secondary enrollment has rebounded, and we're just about where we were last year. Enrollment that we still need to wait and see. And I do have to wonder if the housing crisis in Coeur d'Alene, with families having to move out, especially in our downtown areas, a decreased enrollment, if the price of rent is a piece of that. So I think as we look forward, look forward, that will be an important piece to investigate, so we can work on our budget.
Katie, thank you, Michelle, and to your team. Appreciate you being here with us tonight and presenting all this information. Thank you. We need to move into approving the audit. Then there's a motion.
A motion to approve the annual audit as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Audit is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. And we're going to move in our policies for action, and how would we like to do this? Dr. Hawker, do you have anything to present right away, or
Nope,
should we
I
just
don't.
jump in?
You bet.
All right. We did receive, what would be would we like to take these each individually? Do we have comments on some? We did receive feedback. Okay, so do you want to pull out one right now, or shall I go through each one individually? Yep, great. Let's go ahead and take a look then at policy 2220. kindergarten programs and kindergarten jumpstart. Any comments?
Was there any consideration? Was there a way that we could?
Are we specifically talking the
I think the comment was concerning some language that was changed and in classrooms. So I wanted to ensure that we are not changing policies so parents have that, have that thought. We want to make sure our parents know that they're able to participate in classrooms. It seemed like that might be an easy fix. My iPad's glitching.
I believe that the way that the policy is written and the modifications that are being presented, they do accomplish what the public comment was. Make sure that we weren't trying to limit any sort of input from a perspective. In fact, this policy with the
Yeah, I think it does. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that, we could say in schools and classrooms if that would make it clear. I think it was the crossing out of classroom aids, and I know that was probably a word that was confusing. Just so, it's clear that, if volunteer in classrooms and if we want to change it from schools to classrooms, I don't know if it matters, but. And the other one was about the time frame of the program, and I didn't know maybe you could speak. There was concern that we were crossing off a 4-week kindergarten jumpstart program, and is that something that you guys were recommended, or is the program just advanced and changed, and you guys don't know how long it lasts? I was just curious about that.
Correct. I think you did just answer that. The question is, well, given the specific policy tying us to a 4-week jumpstart, there's great opportunity and flexibility, whether that's a week, whether that's a week, whether that's just a overall kindergarten. Wanted to be able to have that flexibility, and these are again are modifications and recommendations that are coming from school boards.
Perfect. By changing that, we're not encumbering the district. To clarify that also.
I'll make a motion to approve 2220 as presented. Aye. Hold on. Let me give you the mic.
Great. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at then policy 3031, extracurricular activities. Was there questions on that? Any? I don't think we received public comment on that one.
That one, and I would make a motion to approve 3031 as presented.
All in favor? Aye. Take a look at policy 3500, student health, physical screenings, and examinations.
I have a couple comments on this. I think one, just reading the parent comments, I was like, geez, I don't even remember looking at that part, I guess. Looking at it last month, I just, because our packets can be 400 or 500 pages a month, I tend to jump to the red parts and say, okay, what are we looking at? And I think in this instance, it wasn't a red section necessarily that at least the one comment was about. And do see it as an opportunity opportunity to clean up the language a little bit. I think it's a little confusing the way there's some language written about physical examinations, requiring consent, and then when it says it's going to be an opt-out. And so, you know, the more I read it, I can make sense of it, but I think you read it first time, and there's some confusion. I believe that's on page 2 of the policy of 3500. So it's in the, what I call the second paragraph and then the third paragraph of 3500. It's under school health services. I don't know if, because Nicole's not with us, if this is one we just want to hold and we want to maybe talk about it in greater detail.
Yes, my recommendation would be, again, we certainly want to make sure we're transparent on all policy, modifications. And so what was presented to you was just those red items at the end of that. Those are the suggested modifications. I would recommend, of course, you can either not approve those at this juncture and we can just go back to square one, but I would recommend that if we have some suggested modifications to that policy, that we put that out, modifications, and put that out back item for modifications with a board vote following, the following month.
Real quick, and then I'll pass the mic to Ms. May. I'd be comfortable with that, I guess, approving qualifications, making a motion, but just to ask that we bring the policy back to look at that area, clean up the language in regards to parent. Because they're both listed there.
Sounds great.
I'd also be agreeable to that. I also would like a presentation. I think what is confusing after I read the comments and then looked, policy is very specific as to what kind of service it's providing. So I think we really need Nicole to help us understand, or the community as they're watching along, a student health physical screening examination definition, and then we move to school-based health centers, and then the very last piece of it, which I think is using as what do each of these services provide and what is their scope of practice. And so I felt as though as I was reading the community comments, it wasn't maybe clear enough in our policy. These are very different services that are being provided. The screening could be eye testing, for instance, for our elementary students. So just so everybody's aware of the purpose of these categories. So I would feel more comfortable too if we had Nicole here and we could ensure that the language is clear and that parents are aware of their opt-out opportunities, especially around the health centers.
Parts or just wait? Let's just approve the.
Yeah, I can. So I'd make a motion to approve 3500 as presented and request that administration bring it back next month for further discussion around the parent consent and opt-in, or opt-out for clarification.
Aye. I don't think we have public comment.
Make a motion to approve 3525 as presented. Aye.
Aye. These are our policies. Dr. Hawker, I think
I do. I have a brief update to share with the board and the community. Fortunately, the last couple of weeks, we've been averaging in that 50 to 52 positive cases each week. That is down over the weeks prior. So we're certainly, I guess, pleased, if that's a good word to use in this COVID case. Pleased that we're dropping a few numbers of positive cases. That's a plus from the school's perspective. However, I think it's also important to remember we currently have 16 staff that are out because of a COVID related scenario, and from a substitute perspective, we continue to need about 75 substitutes out of all of our staff together in a given time, and we're really only able to fill about 75% of those vacancies. So really, in a nutshell, about 25 each going unfilled, and that is clearly creating challenges within the system. And I think it's just important that the board is aware of that. Our teachers are quite frankly amazing and have and should have every appreciation possible for things that they're doing and stepping up. Our teachers are covering for each other when they're needed. Our administrators are doing the same thing. Everybody's doing the best that they can. We are just absolutely experiencing things like the vast majority of Coeur d'Alene is experiencing, and that is a staffing shortage. We continue to advocate. Human Resources works very diligently to promote our vacancies and try to get applicants, and we're just still struggling with finding people. And certainly from a substitute perspective, we love the substitutes that we have, but the point of most of our substitutes is they're not looking for a permanent full-time position, and we could keep them busy without permanently full-time. So we're really trying to continue to grow our substitute pool, and I would continue to ask anybody that has some time that loves kids and wants to help out to please consider stepping up and substituting so that we can fill those vacancies. Again, although I'm painting kind of a bleak picture of 25% of our vacancies going unfilled, I do want to reiterate that since school has started, we have greatly improved upon that number. So we're trending in the right direction. We're just not there. And so really, again, want to thank our teachers and administrators for everything that they're doing, and as many as possible to step up and sub.
I just wanted to quick make a comment. I didn't get a chance to during consent agenda, but I wanted to thank Eric Davis and HR and your team for putting together and listening to our comments at the last meeting. I'm glad that we can meet in the middle and provide our staff some sick days, and especially if their students, their children are sick. I think it provides the right message that we're grateful that they're working so hard, and so thank you for finding a way to make.
Sure, there's one policy, 7400, the procurement management system, and I would probably defer to Lynn or Katie Ebner to talk about that introduction.
Yeah, so we noticed that when we rewrote the 7th section, there was one part of our policy that overwritten that we really like to have, bringing any related party transactions to be approved. In a community like ours, we have a lot of small businesses, and we're and so chances are we may, as a district, need to purchase something from a local business that this would have a tie to an employee. So a part for a mower, we might have to go to a local business that the only business. So we would like a mechanism, but we want to be transparent about that. So we went through the policy that was suggested by ISBA we added back the language that says that it is policy to bring it to the board each time. And we were doing that, but we realized that we were doing it and it wasn't in policy, so we like that to keep happening going forward. So, any questions?
This month and come back to us again. Thank you. Board reports for information. I'm going to go ahead and talk right now. Really, deadline for applications for zone. Deadline for applications is November 4th, so 2 days from now. As of today, we have 5 applicants for that seat. All applicants meet the requirements in order to be considered. Options, so we can get. One is to do, this would be the time to conduct interviews. One would be a special meeting on Monday, November 15th at 5 to do that. The other would
Yeah, I think that if we have our meeting on the 15th, they would give the new trustee the opportunity to get feed and get time free the 15th.
Yeah, I can do either. I guess my only caveat to that would be it's pretty short notice for those candidates because we didn't have that out there. So we want to make sure 15th works with all of our candidates and that we're not excluding someone all of a sudden because they can't meet our deadline.
Inquiries from candidates if they could expect in terms of timing, and so I've just let them know that I would make so I'll reach out and let them know that
We're moving on to the 2021 ISBA resolutions, and this does not. ISBA resolutions that will. We were in agreement as far as just the way each of these written and their recommendations. Do we as trustees agree with the ISBA Executive Board recommendations? Coming up then, our calendar date would be the November 15th workshop, which the trustee zone. All right. I think that brings us to the end